On September 24, 2008, federal investigators raided a corporate headquarters in Minnetonka, Minnesota. They were searching for evidence of a massive fraud. This raid targeted Pedders Group worldwide, a company later found to have operated a $3.65 billion Ponzi scheme. The man at the center of this investigation was Thomas Joseph Pedders. He was a prominent businessman, born in 1957 in St. Cloud, Minnesota. His company had acquired well-known brands. Federal authorities alleged his entire operation was built on lies. The government learned of the scheme when a vice president within Pedders' own company confessed. She then wore a hidden microphone, recording conversations where Pedders admitted to the fraud. Investigators found the scheme relied on fabricated purchase orders for goods that never existed. This raid showed that even a multi-billion-dollar empire can crumble when one person decides to speak up.
The early hustle.
Thomas Joseph Pedders, the man who would later orchestrate a multi-billion-dollar fraud, was born in St. Cloud, Minnesota in 1957. His family had run a tailor and fabric shop for over 100 years. Even with that background, Pedders showed a distinct entrepreneurial spirit from a young age. While still attending high school in 1973, Pedders launched his first business.
He called it Ear Electronics. This was a mail-order stereo company. It specifically targeted college students, offering them deals on audio equipment. Pedders identified a niche market, then found a way to reach it directly. After only one semester, Pedders decided college wasn't for him. He left to pursue his business career full-time. By the early 1980s, Pedders had become a regional manager for an electronics store chain. He worked in Colorado. When that business went bankrupt, Pedders saw an opportunity. He didn't just look for a new job. Instead, he purchased 5 of its former locations.
These stores were spread across Colorado and Kansas. This move demonstrated a drive to control operations, to be the one in charge. It showed a willingness to seize advantage from a difficult situation. Imagine a small business owner watching their competitor fail, then stepping in to buy 5 of their best storefronts. This kind of aggressive acquisition became Pedders' signature. Years later, this same approach would be scaled dramatically. He would acquire entire companies like Fingerhut and Polaroid. But instead of just building their sales, he would use their names to fabricate purchase orders. These fake orders then became collateral for billions in loans from unsuspecting investors. His early talent for seizing assets evolved into a system for creating the illusion of assets. Building a business front. Thomas Joseph Pedders started young. His early businesses were small, but he aimed bigger. By the mid-2000s, Pedders Group worldwide looked different. It was a sprawling, legitimate-looking empire. Look at the company's acquisitions. In 2002, Pedders Group worldwide purchased the Fingerhut name and its assets. Fingerhut was a known direct mail and online retailer. Pedders then moved his operations into Fingerhut's former headquarters in Minnetonka, Minnesota. This gave his business a real base. 3 years later, in 2005, Petters made a larger acquisition. He bought the Polaroid brand. This cost $426 million. The plan was to use the name on new consumer electronics. In 2006, Petters Group Worldwide added Sun Country Airlines to its holdings. Imagine you are an investor reviewing the company profile. Petters Group Worldwide became a diverse holding company. It had 3,200 employees. It had offices across North America, South America, Asia, and Europe. By 2007, it reported $2.3 billion in revenue. You'd see a company with a wide range of recognizable brands. It looked like a solid, successful enterprise. This portfolio of companies served a key purpose.
It provided a plausible backdrop for the fraud. Petters needed to convince lenders his company moved large amounts of merchandise. He claimed these goods were being sold to major big-box retailers. The presence of companies like Fingerhut and Polaroid made these claims seem real. It allowed him to present fabricated purchase orders from these supposed sales as collateral. Lenders, seeing a company with real assets and real brands, wired billions of dollars. This facade hid the fraud. Behind this image, Petters' real business ran differently.
The core deception.
Petters Group Worldwide built an image of diversified success. But beneath this surface, Thomas Joseph Petters operated a vast deception. He promised investors high returns. He claimed to resell consumer goods to major retailers. But these goods did not exist. The retail orders were fabricated. He used these fake orders as collateral. This allowed him to borrow more money. Between 1998 and 2008, Petters raised over $4 billion. Investment funds like Arrowhead and Palm Beach channeled this money. This system was a Ponzi scheme. It presented itself as complex. It offered exclusive access to supposedly lucrative deals. This complexity hid the truth. It was a cycle of borrowing new money to pay back old investors.
Fraud often hides behind such intricate transactions. It also uses claims of exclusive access to special deals. This elaborate structure depended on a hidden secret. Soon, that secret would come out. The inside turn. For years, the elaborate deception of Petters Group Worldwide relied on manufactured records and the silence of its inner circle. Imagine you are a trusted employee, privy to your company's deepest secrets. Deanna Coleman was a vice president of operations for Petters Co. She knew the fraud intimately. She saw how the money moved. In 2008, Coleman made a difficult choice. She approached federal authorities. She confessed her own involvement in the scheme. She then agreed to become an informant. This meant wearing a hidden microphone. She recorded many conversations with Tom Petters and others. These recordings captured damning admissions. On tape, Tom Petters repeatedly confessed to the fraud scheme. He spoke about falsifying his tax returns according to official affidavits. Coleman and another associate, Robert Dean White, revealed the inner workings. At Petters' direction, they fabricated documents. These phony records showed Petters Co. buying merchandise. They claimed electronic goods from 2 suppliers. But these were phantom transactions. Petters Co. used these fake records to secure billions of dollars in loans.
Lenders were told Petters Co. would sell these goods to big box stores. Purchase orders were provided to substantiate these deals. But the deals and documents were all fakes. Petters obtained money through these loans. New loans often paid off old ones. This insider information was vital. The government knew nothing of the scheme until Coleman stepped forward. Her cooperation pulled back the curtain. It exposed the mechanics of the multi-billion-dollar fraud. This internal breakthrough provided investigators with the hard proof they needed. It transformed the entire case. Now, with irrefutable evidence in hand, the investigation moved to its next phase. Raid and arrest. The cooperation of a key insider gave federal agents the evidence they needed. Picture the morning of September 24, 2008. FBI and IRS agents arrived. They raided Petters Group Worldwide's headquarters in Minnetonka. At the same moment, agents searched Thomas Joseph Petters' home in Wayzata. They sought proof of a scheme. This operation relied on tens of millions of dollars in purchases and sales that did not exist. Petters resigned as chief executive officer 5 days later. On October 3rd, just over a week after the federal actions, Petters was taken into custody. He was charged with mail fraud, wire fraud, money laundering, and obstruction of justice charges followed. Prosecutors immediately moved to deny him bail. They presented documents alleging Petters had encouraged others to leave the country. He had also expressed regret about giving up his passport. He had even discussed fleeing the country if his fraud was discovered. The court proceedings for Thomas Joseph Petters were only just beginning. The verdict and sentence. The dramatic raid on Tom Petters' properties was only the beginning of his legal reckoning. In 2009, a jury reached its decision. They found Thomas Joseph Petters guilty of numerous federal crimes. These included mail fraud. This verdict confirmed the operation of a multi-billion-dollar Ponzi scheme. It exposed a vast network of deception. Petters received 50 years in federal prison. He was sent to the United States Penitentiary, Leavenworth. Consider the ripple effect of such a crime. Say a dozen people in your hometown invested their life savings. One person's deception can devastate many futures. It can erase decades of careful planning. Financial crimes, when they reach this scale, carry severe consequences. They mean long-term legal penalties. It showed how a seemingly legitimate business empire could hide a multi-billion-dollar fraud. It revealed what it took to bring down its architect, Tom Petters. The legal system had made its judgment. Yet, questions remained for many investors. How did such a massive fraud go undetected for so long? Red flag. Unverifiable collateral. Thomas Joseph Petters' long sentence stemmed from a fraud built on simple deceptions. How did a seemingly legitimate business empire hide a multi-billion-dollar fraud? What did it take to bring down its architect, Thomas Joseph Petters, born in St. Cloud, Minnesota in 1957? One major vulnerability for his victims was the collateral itself. Petters Co. told lenders a precise story. It claimed to buy large quantities of consumer merchandise.
It bought these goods from specific suppliers. Then it claimed to sell this merchandise directly to well-known big-box stores. This was the promised legitimate business activity. For every loan, Pedders Co. provided promissory notes. They also gave security agreements. These documents implied that real assets, physical goods, backed the money lenders provided. Here's what happened, what this looked like to a potential investor. You are reviewing an investment proposal. The paperwork arrives. It includes detailed purchase orders. These show clear demand from a national retail chain. It lists specific inventory, product models, and large volumes. You see the projected profit margins. The numbers are convincing. The documents appear legitimate. They promise a clear path for your investment to return, secured by physical goods. Your money feels safe, tied to tangible items. But the purchase orders were entirely fake. The deals with the big box stores were entirely fake. There was no merchandise. The purchases from the suppliers were fabricated. There was no actual sales to major retailers. The collateral that lenders thought they held simply did not exist. It was all a fiction. Every piece of merchandise listed, every truckload, every store delivery was fabricated. This meant lenders had no real assets backing their investments. If the supposed deals fell through, there was nothing to seize. There was nothing to sell to recover their money. The entire financial structure rested on an illusion of inventory. The underlying assets were impossible to independently verify. There were no actual goods to inspect. There was no inventory to confirm. The system was designed to keep the collateral just out of reach, making third-party checks difficult or impossible. This lack of physical assets meant lenders could not verify their security. Their money rested on an illusion. This inability to verify assets was one major problem. There was another. It involved the returns themselves. Red flag. Consistent, high returns. Beyond the challenge of verifying collateral, another warning sign often appears in these setups. Many people seek investments that promise steady, high returns. Who wouldn't want that kind of predictable growth? Thomas Joseph Pedders offered exactly this. His investment funds, including names like Arrowhead and Palm Beach, showed investors impressive, unwavering profits. This consistent performance, regardless of actual market conditions, is a classic hallmark of a Ponzi scheme. The scheme works by creating a powerful illusion. Early investors actually receive their promised payouts. This builds a strong sense of legitimacy for the operation. It makes the returns seem authentic, drawing in even more money. You see a company like Pedders Group Worldwide reporting billions in revenue and believe the profits are real. But the money isn't coming from legitimate business activity. It's simply new funds arriving from other, newer investors. Charles Ponzi used this method over 100 years ago. In Pedders' case, new investor money was used to pay off earlier investor obligations. This kept the cycle moving. The returns never dipped. They were never affected by a market downturn or a slow sales quarter. That's because they weren't tied to any real business performance. Imagine you're at a neighborhood barbecue, and everyone is talking about this incredible investment. They show you bank statements, all with perfect, regular deposits. Your friends tell you they've doubled their money. You might think, this is a sure thing. I need to get in. Yet, this consistent flow of money isn't proof of a thriving company. It is the fundamental mechanism of the fraud itself. The money just moves in a circular path until the entire structure collapses. The business looks legitimate, but the promised returns are not. If an investment consistently delivers returns that seem too good to be true, they usually are. And when you put it all together, how did a business empire hide a multi-billion-dollar fraud? What did it take to expose its architect, Thomas Joseph Petters? Petters Group worldwide appeared legitimate. It acquired well-known brands. It reported billions in revenue. But beneath this, a massive Ponzi scheme operated. Petters fabricated purchase orders. He promised high returns for goods that did not exist. The scheme involved complex transactions. It relied on claims of exclusive deals. The unraveling began with an insider. This person confessed to authorities. They then cooperated with the investigation. This internal help was key. Federal agents moved fast. They raided Petters' headquarters. Petters was arrested. He faced charges of mail fraud, wire fraud, and money laundering. He was convicted in 2009. He received a 50-year federal sentence.
Thomas Joseph Petters, born in 1957 in St. Cloud, Minnesota, was an ambitious chief executive officer. He built an empire. That empire was built on lies. His story shows how a man's ambition built a fraud. It shows how a diverse portfolio can hide the truth. And it shows the power of an insider to expose such schemes. What business practices might mask deep deception? You might see them every day. The next case shows how promises of quick wealth can mislead even experienced investors.